Thokozani, Thokozani family, Thokozani Babantu, Hotep Royals. How is everyone doing today? Hope you are all well and thriving. We have Mkhulu joining us. Mkhulu Nsingiza will be joining us shortly so we can have a discussion on why we say republics on the continent must fall, and also answer the question of Orania, and how Orania came into being. Please tap the screen as you come on. I see a lot of you guys are coming on. Thank you. Please tap the screen. Can you guys hear me? If you could, yes, keep tapping the screen, guys. You're not charged for tapping the screen. Just keep tapping it. Tap, so we get that number of likes up as high as possible. What that does, it helps it in the algorithm so that other people can pick up on it. And those who've been meaning to watch then start to see that we are online. Thokozani, I see you all. Thokozani, come on through. I hope everyone is having a great weekend. Happy Saturday to you all. So Thokoza, ngumbani lo ngibingelelayo. I can't see. Thokozeni. So family, I have to say I am loving the photographs that you are all sending, holding your calendar. Thank you so much. I'm getting a lot of very nice pictures of people proudly holding their African calendar book. If you don't know what that is, you can watch videos. But in brief, the Africa calendar book is based on a calendar, the oldest stone calendar in the world, that is in South Africa, which is really the calendar of our ancestors. And a lot of people think, what's in a calendar? Well, whoever controls your time controls you. And timing when it comes to African spirituality is very important, particularly when it comes to rituals. So if you want the African calendar, there is a link tree in my bio. You go in that link tree, you will see a section that says links. Click on those links. There's several links. There is a link for an ebook, lulu.com. There is a link for a paperback, also at Lulu. That's for people outside America and those in America, but they do ship outside of America. So go ahead, get yours. I know there's some of you who've ordered. For the number of orders we've gotten, I don't have a commensurate number of pictures. So I know there's still a lot of you out there who are either waiting to receive your book or who've received and you haven't sent me a picture. Now, please, here's the thing. When I say send me a picture of your book, I don't mean just send me a picture. I need this kind of thing, right? You and your book. People have been sending me their books. I'm like, well, I could just take my own book and make a billion pictures. So please put your face in there. There's somebody who said to me, yeah, I'm really camera shy. And then she sent me this picture and she's just this gorgeous goddess. So I'm like, what? Why are you camera shy? So please go ahead and order yours. We're trying to provide the diaspora with a very firm foundation in understanding why we do the things we do, right? Because I think, for example, the topic we're going to talk about today is very important because you've often heard Mkhulu Nsingiza say, republics must fall. Some of you may have heard Mkhulu Nsingiza say, Pan-Africanism is nonsense, and wonder, from the diaspora perspective, now Pan-Africanism is about all Africans coming together. Why would he say something like that? And I think it's great that you come and you understand it from a spiritual and historical perspective, why this is so, right? So he'll be coming on. I haven't seen him yet, and as soon as I do see him, I will invite him on. But it is very important as we build these bridges across the diaspora for people to understand certain things. I know, for example, in America, the Pan-Africanist movement, many people are a part of it, they love it. And my own sense is that foundationally, it's great in terms of actually understanding the basics that the continent is composed of different countries. I hate that word countries because, again, it's a Western construct, the way these countries were formed. And we'll go deeper into that. So, as a basis for understanding that, Africa is a huge continent, that's good. But from understanding where Pan-Africanism comes from, it's also good to understand why that doesn't serve us as melanated beings across the whole world, right? And so, yeah, somebody said something. Oh, yeah, there comes Mkhulu. So let me get Mkhulu on, guys, and get our conversation on. Get ready to learn. Invitation sent. Let's see. Okay. Mkhulu, I've sent an invitation, Mkhulu. So just accept request and then, yeah, let's see. Yeah, so I have invited him. So Mkhulu, just accept request. There we go. Thokoza Mkhulu.
Oh, manje i-video la.
Thokoza Mkhulu.
Yeah.
Thokoza Mkhulu. Thokoza Khehla ninjani?
Thokoza Ndlovukazi.
Thokoza. Siyabonga Mkhulu. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence again. We have an eager crowd here who are waiting to hear about why we say republics must fall. And so, what I thought we would do is take it from, say, a historical perspective. I'm going to enlarge you just now so that we look
Okay.
at, for starters, what existed before these republics, right? Because
Yes.
and then take it from there. What existed and how was that serving us? How was whatever existed functional for us as spiritual people? Thokoza Kate. Let me expand.
Thokoza.
Where's he gone? Thokoza Mkhulu.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Thokoza Kate.
Bengifaka nje do not disturb. So that,
Okay. So that there are no phone calls.
yes. Thokoza Ndlovukazi. We was a question, you asked a question?
Yes, Ketla. I was asking Guti, as before we delve into why we say republics must fall, to give a sort of good foundation, a build up to that. My question was, historically, before there were republics, what was there? Because sometimes a lot of people don't even know. They just there are people, and to not to denigrate them because it's not their fault. The school system across the world generally only teaches about Africa after the scramble of Africa, which is where Africa was carved up into little pieces. So my question to you was, before all of that, what existed? Thokoza.
Thokoza Ndlovukazi. What really existed, it's what we are trying to revive, what is called the Great Empire of Kemet. What is the Great Empire of Kemet? It was a union of kingdoms on the continent that decided, because of trade and also just a unity on the continent, all these kingdoms all over the continent decided to unite I think, these are people who were not only, remember at this time there was no colonization. So it was Africans owning their land, living in abundance, right? These people, remember that kingship, how it started, is that the royal house is the representative on earth of the cosmic order above, meaning the sun and the moon, right? This is what establishes a royal house. So these were Africans who were still connected with nature, because nature was their informer as to what to do next. So everything that they were doing, it was founded. So during this development, in terms of economic development and economic trading, as well as spiritual development, the spiritual doctrine, these people, these royals, read from the same book, right? Which is why it was important when we were forming, a movement. It was very important for us to then choose carefully what name are we going to give to this movement. So for us to actually come to the conclusion that the only structure that united black people before colonization, it was this great empire of Kemet. Here in the southern part of Africa, the southern part, they call themselves bona bakhulu baseKemu, the great ones of Kemet, meaning the very same group of people that started this civilization here in the south, went up with it until they reached the north. The north was strategic, for these kingdoms, because it was a trade, a place. This is where they all went when they wanted to trade with the outside, world. So that is why northern, Kemet, which is Egypt, ended up being, populated by all people from the continent, right? So these are royals. We credit these royals with introducing civilization to the world, right? Then, they ruled on their own for ages, whereby they perfected certain milestones in their development of civilization, African civilization, until they reach refinement in Upper Kemet, which is Egypt today, which is why Egypt is very important for all black people, because it was established by a union of, African minds, because this is where we're assembled, in the north, as opposed to now, all Africans are assembled in the south. Here in South Africa, you find all Africans here. So it was the same thing, whereby unity for them was very important in terms of not only protection against invasion, but in terms of developing, this civilization that they started. When we talk about the calendar, we talk about civilization which was started by these royals. When we talk about mathematics, you talk about, science, you talk about everything. These are the people who taught the world. So therefore, for us, it's very important to actually revive this, power of these ancient kingdoms, which is why we then, named our movement the Great Empire of Kemet, because we are trying to reactivate the energy that held us together as African people. So this is when, Africans experience abundance. And this is when Africans were self-policing. There were no prisons. Why? Because of the belief that all of us were bounded by what is called the purest form of Ubuntu, which is Ma'at. Ma'at was prevailing at the time because people knew that they are not the physical body that, they see in the mirror, but their spirit. So therefore, the most important thing to them, it was to forever and relentlessly, work towards harmonizing, the spirits that are above, that make everything animate here on earth. So they mastered that craft, they understood nature, which is why that period, we name it when Africans were in symbolic thinking, right? They created symbols that represented, these divine, principles that have created everything. These are 9 vibrational frequencies that are responsible. So this is all the civilization that we learned, which was, brought by these royals. So this is, in just a brief, this is the historical, fact about the continent of Gaza. Before the encroachment and, the arrival of, colonialists who came to maim us, for our land and our resources. We didn't know scarcity, which is why there was no theft, because everything was in abundance. So scarcity was, brought by, Westerners, white people on the continent. Ever since they landed on the continent, we started experiencing scarcity, which is what has led us to this situation that we are in, trying to really understand. Because when we are talking about the republics, we are talking about a period of colonization when we were slaves. Which is why for me, that era, yes, it's important for historical basis, but it holds no value, as to who we are as African people. So for us to truly understand ourselves, we need to go beyond pre-colonization. This is where you are then given a clear picture of the golden era of the continent, through these royals who spearheaded everything.
Keta, before we move on, I have a question that I know is in the streets, and this question.
Hello?
We were always taught that, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, guys.
We were always taught that, African royalty was barbaric, then it doesn't help to have these movies like Shaka Zulu out there killing people left, right, and center. So we were given a very negative view of African royalty, and we were taught that democracy and the republics was more civilized. So I want to take us back and talk a little bit, especially, incorporating the spiritual perspective of what was a king's role and what was a queen. What would you say is a huge difference in leadership between how a president might lead, which is in the Republican era, of course, and how a king or a queen might lead? Thokoza Kehle.
Thokoza Ndlovukazi. Yes, remember, in the introduction, I did mention a bit, about, the role of, the royal house. A king, just, as an example, the establishment of, kings on the continent. Remember that our creation as African people, 9 ether beings, it's associated with that divineness in terms of the people that landed from the planet Nibiru, right? These are people, that infuse their essence, with what was here already on the continent, because, other scientists are talking about Homo erectus, where, they used, the essence of the Homo erectus and the essence of these Anunnakis from Nibiru to create these 9 ether beings, which are us as African people. So when you read through history, divineness was brought by these people because these are the people who gave us all the knowledge. But that came down, to certain, individuals that had that, bloodline, that the first establishment of, kingship. Those are the people who were then chosen to continue, which is why, in terms of, royalty, the minute you dislodge the structure of a royalty, as an example, you replace the real king with a fake king. You have messed up that royalty, right? Yes. Which is why that bloodline was forever protected because of that divineness. And when you sit on the throne, remember that even the king to sit on the throne, there had to be Indlovukazi, a princess that marries, the king, for the king to have a right to sit on the throne, right? So it was all determined by queens and princesses, as to give that legitimacy of the person that is going to, sit there. So therefore, it was very important for them to protect, that bloodline. So we find that, which is a very sad story. This has happened all over the continent, whereby when colonization happened, the unfortunate thing and the unfortunate, history that, we're left with is that most of the kings were replaced, right?
Of course.
And they were replaced by people who collaborated with the colonizer. All those who were resisting the encroachment of colonizers on the continent, and they were fighting against the colonizer, they were killed, most of them. If they didn't want to toe the line, they were killed or removed or deposed from their position, which then messed up that bloodline. But there were those families that resisted, and those families are still there, still sidelined today, by these systems that are operating. Because the system that replaced this great empire of Kemet on the continent is the republics on the continent, right? And the republics, when they were introduced, they didn't give themselves time or were not interested in restoring the rightful people who are supposed to sit on those kingdoms. They continued with the fake kings and queens that were put there by colonizers, which then messed up the whole thing, which is why most of our problems, or the central problem of Africa, is these republics on the continent of Gaza. Africa will never be free until we destroy these republics on the continent and start afresh, and start, to draw up laws, and, making reference to what we had before. What was the foundation of our superior law? Do you understand? These are things that we need to investigate because Africa gave the world the first constitution in the world. But when Africa gets liberated, they go and import a foreign law which then writes a constitution. Right?
Yes. Sorry to interrupt you. So that we don't run away, I have a question, and I think it's also a question that for people, remember again that history is no longer being taught in many schools.
Yes.
And so our young people are very poor when it comes to history. So here we are. We had this amazing coalition, if you like, or organization of royal kingdoms across the continent. In comes the colonizer. Africa is then chopped up into many little pieces. And by the way, I'm not giving you everything. You're going to need to go and do your research on dates. But then Africa, at what was called the partition of Africa, is chopped up into many pieces. And this happens centuries after Africa has been looted, and they were looting and they were looting. Now they suddenly decide, because they're all greedy, well, you're getting too much and you're getting too much, so let's chop up this continent, and then France will get these countries and we'll call them, and they gave them their own names, of course, which many we still hold to this day. The British will get so many countries, the Germans will get this, and so on. So we go through this period of colonization where the colonizer is on the land with us.
Yes.
And we are basically slaves in our own land. They have written laws that sustain them. They have written laws that protect them. They have written laws that keep the Black person in servitude. Liberation movements, heroes, whatever you want to call them, all come together in these different places and decide that they want independence. They want self-governance. They want self-rule. So we have war after war of independence. We get the first country to be independent being Ghana, followed very quickly by Nigeria. Now, at this point, when we get independence, what is happening with the state of these so-called republics?
Okay, Ndovgazi, before we get there, I just want to close this issue of royals with this statement that says, every time we were defeated by a colonizer, one of us is in cahoots with the colonizer. The reason that the great empire of Kemet was broken is because of some of the royals decided to be sellouts. Right? Which then weakened this empire that existed and harmonized everything, right? So this is a generational curse that we as African people need to deal with. It's so easy for African people to sell each other, The enemy would never have defeated us had we been united right from the start. So in just a closing, it's important for us to note that we have this illness, of being weak, and we are easily bought by material things. It's very easy to corrupt an African person, just bring money and promise them, whatever that will take care of their, personal needs. They will sell you so easily. So this is a generational curse that we need to deal with, so that we are not able to move with those people that have that illness. Togos and guys. Then the question about republics of guys. Remember that these colonizers, were very smart, right? They couldn't have given over power to somebody who was resisting, their colonization, right? So they gave some of us, after they had, defeated us and destroyed, our civilization somehow, because when they go, to a place to colonize, they make sure that they plunder, the artifacts, everything, so that it becomes theirs, right? Then when we're under their control, they then move us from the education system that we're used to. They introduce their system. Their system comes as a package, right? As you were explaining, the first republic on the continent is that Republic of Ghana. So that didn't happen, until they didn't hand over power, until they made sure that they had trained one of us, to a point that they are ready to take command, even when the colonizer is not there, right? That is the group of the Nkwame, right? Who went to the world for education, right? And they knew, Nkwame, they knew that the custodians of the land, was the kings and queens, African royalty, right? So these leaders, all of them, I'm just making Kwame Nkrumah as an example, but all of them, they went through the process, right? The colonizer educates you, so to a point that you end up looking down upon your own identity. You lose yourself in that, enticement, by the colonizer. You no longer are able, to project an African image wherever you are. You have to dress like them, think like them, eat like them, do everything like them. So that is why all of leaders, they boast, I'm a doctor of this, I'm a professor of this, all of them. They've been thoroughly educated to take command, right?
Basically to be stewards, right? Basically to be managers.
That's it in Jamaica. So when they see that you are ready, like as an example, Nkwame Nkrumah, before the inauguration, I think a day or before, whatever, he went to England to see the Queen, to sign a document that he agrees that the Queen is the head of the Republic of Ghana.
Which is what happened throughout the rest of the continent. So he set the precedent. He set the precedent for what was going to happen with all other republics. Because before any president is sworn in anywhere on the continent, they needed to go to London to pay homage, or to France, wherever it is, whatever colony it was, and sign off that no one will ever come against you. And this is so painful. This is so painful because it's the very same leaders or the very same people we looked up to. I mean, I'm of the age that remembers the liberation struggle in Zimbabwe, for example. We looked up to a lot of these leaders because they were in the bush fighting, and we know this, they really fought. But now the question then becomes, what in the end were they fighting for? Were they fighting? Because it's clearly they were not fighting for total liberation and the restoration of Africa and African culture and African values. They were fighting just to get a seat at the table of whiteness.
Hey, that's all of them. When end of Gazi, that was the objective. If you trace the history of all these liberation, movements that we had, let me not say all, but most of them, you find that in their thinking, they didn't want to destroy the Western system, but they wanted a seat on the table so that the Westerner governs with them. You know, so this is what has started this whole problem for African people because, and all of them, they lie to us and say to us, oh no, we are gaining liberation. They don't tell us that they first went to sign documents, you know, where they lock us up. Hey, they lock us up, you know, and give power, you know, to the colonizer, right? Meaning that they are just lying to us. They are selling us an illusion, you know, an illusion of freedom. It's not really freedom, you know, and once Ghana started, it then trickled down. Everybody, you know, that is why when you are accepting a republic, you then become part of the Commonwealth.
Of course, yes, the grand old Commonwealth.
What does that mean? It means that if you are a member of the Commonwealth, you are a manager of your country on behalf of the Queen.
Exactly.
Right? And these are people who are, yes, you know, sometimes you question, why, you know, did they let so many of us die for this liberation, you know? Because all of, if you were to ask comrades who were involved in the struggle, were fighting for the land.
Right.
You know, the land was the issue. That is why people went to exile.
That's it.
Right? But now, these leaders changed that. That we are fighting for the right to vote.
Imagine.
Hey, yes. Because in their minds, you know, this colonial system is the alpha and omega.
Right.
Right? So therefore, they didn't want to encourage and enlighten black people about their tried and tested governing system, which was demonized, you know, by the colonizer. So this is the unfortunate and the painful thing that has happened on the continent. All these leaders, about Nyerere, about Tata, everybody just sold us a lie. You know, and we are living with that reality now. All of them deferred the problem of returning the land and our economy back to us. They deferred that, you know, to us. They didn't tell us that there were secret documents they signed, which then handed over, and they handed all Africans, you know, as subjects of the British Empire.
You know what's so funny, Mkhulu? I'm thinking about this, is that the way African royalty was so demonized, and yet and still the British monarchy still stands. People would say, you know what, the monarchy is outdated, it needs to be done away with. And this is the message that as we were growing up, we were told, yeah, the monarchy must die. But nobody questioned one of the most hideous and most corrupt monarchies still stands, which is the British monarchy to this day.
Yes,
but
yes.
It was okay to destroy royalty in Africa. That for me is where I started having like question marks, like how does this even make sense? And so now you destroy royalty on the continent, and all our so-called presidents, when they're inaugurated, need to go and pay homage to the fake queen in Britain. That always made me feel some type of way. And I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I think it will clarify for a lot of people the hypocrisy we have to deal with whenever we have to deal with whiteness. They will tell you something is outdated and is nonsense. Meanwhile, they are doing that very same thing. So we were told what is sophisticated are these republics where people get a democratic vote and you get a say in what happens. Whereas royalty, you don't get a say. A king is an autocrat, is a dictator who just lays down the law, and that's that. You just have to bow. And in fact, they used to call the monarchies authoritarian, meaning he's the final authority and he's not to be disputed. Whereas now they're selling you this one where they say, well, you get a say-so in what happens in your country. You get to pick your leaders based on what they stand on, and then you get to vote. What they don't tell you is that whatever leader you get or you vote for is not really a president. There's no such thing, because there's head office where these people, all of them on the continent, are controlled from. And now we're seeing the resistance to the republic in a very interesting way when you look at people like Traore. Because many young people are seeing that republics on the continent are a major problem for us. With all the systems and institutions these republics bring, including religion, including the education system, including the banking system, everything that comes with the republic, because it's a package of systems, are not good for us as Bagwantu, Mkhulu.
No, certainly, Ndovgazi. And we look at the hypocrisy of the UN, right? The UN declares in 1974 that the Republic of South Africa is crime against humanity.
Right.
Right? Meaning that when we took over power here, we're supposed to destroy the Republic and restore, what was there before the Republic, right? But now, this Republic gets a good name again from the UN.
Wow.
After they have, what do they say? They have blackwashed a white system, right? A system is a system, right? It doesn't matter you replace a white president with a black president. It's still a white man's system, right? And according to international law, you are not supposed to implement a foreign law in a foreign country or foreign land, right? That is against the international law. Yeah. But the UN, why? Because these republics on the continent, which is a foreign law based on Dutch Roman law, yeah. All of them, these republics, the UN, allows that, right? That these republics can continue, but meaning that they have a legal standing now, right? Because they only changed the face, right? The representatives of the system, and ignoring that the system itself is based on theft, right? So therefore there can never be justice. You can never receive justice or get justice or expect justice from something that is rotten to the core. Yes, meaning that the UN is not supposed to allow these republics to continue, because this is what stifles everything, on the continent. African people are suffering because of these republics.
Thokoza Ketla, it's funny you say that, because I'm laughing, because look at the member states of the UN, though. They are our former colonizers. So go figure, the UN was created as another part of the system to ensure that, like, this system is so deeply entrenched. Yes, we have, but it's our former colonizers who form the most influential countries in the UN. Go figure that suddenly what they were declaring a crime against humanity, which is the Republic of South Africa, suddenly is okay now. That's the hypocrisy of whiteness at play again. I don't think we can expect anything better. But I think what needs to happen is we need ourselves to have these kind of conversations, to conscientize our people in understanding, to look just beyond the physical and the day-to-day of their existence, and understand the deeper implications of what we are dealing with and what we're living in, and what we need to fight in order to truly liberate ourselves, which for me, true liberation means land back primarily. Without the land, we're not free. Forget it.
No, it's like that, end of guys. That's what true liberation means, right? we want the land back. We want not only the land, the money that they stole, and they continue stealing, from the continent. And remember that the wrongness of these republics, their formation, right, is based on theft, because they balkanized all of our land and registered that land unlawfully under these republics.
Right.
Right? And these republics, currently they are ruling over, royals, unjustly so, because royals, they own the land, right? Politicians don't have land. They don't own. The power that they have, they were given by the colonizer, right? You remove the land that belongs to the to the black nation and their kingdoms. Politics have nothing to rule over, right? So, which is why we need to go back and strengthen these kingdoms. All of us must go back to where we belong and try and revive these structures and conscientize these kings who are sitting currently. And that there's got to be a sanitary, we need to sanitize that structure, of royalty, because the people, some of them who are there are sitting, in seats or thrones that don't belong to them.
And that's why that's an added problem, you see.
Yes, it's very easy to clear that, because those, the original houses are still there. But they are suppressed by these politics, that favor the colonizer. Meaning that these politicians didn't resolve that issue of, African royalty. They just continued where the colonizers, made the damage. They didn't correct. They continued with fake kings and queens, because they are easily controlled by them. They know that if they have a central point where they can go and talk, just to go and lie to people when it comes to election, they go to one or two kingdoms. Then they know that they've, reached all the kings, in that area. That is why they are maintaining this structure. Which is why it's very important for us to be conscious, as to who our leader. We have no leader as African people. We are leaderless, which is why revolution has got to start from the ground, because nobody represents our interests. It's all about self-preservation, of guys.
I wanted us to move to the big question now, just in the interest of time.
Yeah.
The question that people and in the diaspora, and rightfully so, our diaspora family has been shaken by the fact that a place like Orania exists on the continent. So maybe, Ketla, you could give us a little bit about what Orania is and how Orania comes to be possible.
It's allowed by the Constitution, guys. Remember that the Republic, creates this theft of a republic. Then they write laws to protect the theft.
Right.
Which is the Republic. So the Constitution allows the Oranias of this world to exist. It's not only Orania, there's another one here.
So can we define what Orania is? Somebody's just asked the question, like, what is Orania?
Orania, it's a white only, area in South Africa. Blacks are not allowed. Why? Because during when now we are coming closer to 94 before the elections. So the Afrikaners made sure that they secure the land, right? They gave each other plots of land all everywhere. and that land was registered under the apartheid constitution, right? When the ANC comes in, the ANC says, we are going to give, and white people didn't demand, we are going to offer white people so they don't leave our country, the sunset clause. What does the sunset clause? The sunset clause protects the property rights
of white people.
Of white people. And it's the ANC that offered. White people didn't offer that. Right?
They didn't ask for it.
They didn't ask for it, which is why it's still a wonder. Today, Thabo Mbeki just said it, openly in public, that no, we just offered because we didn't want them to leave the country. And at that point, at that moment, they were then sacrificing all black people, justifying the theft of our land. So it's not only Orania where there are sections of the land that have been privatized according to the constitution. As to where they got that land from, who did they give money to buy that land, it's unknown.
And knowing that on the African continent, land was never sold,
it's like
and sold, it basically means this is stolen land.
It is stolen land.
It is stolen land, and they have built this town called Orania, which has got their own school, they have their own municipality, it's like their own little kingdom there, and black people are not even allowed in there, not even as workers.
It's true.
It's like
this is the constitution, which is why, guys, you see, I always, regret seeing, black people, most of them being drawn to this political system. Once we are motivated by politics as an African person, you are a potential sellout. And as a politician by default, you are working to protect the interest of white people. Because all your actions you are doing there in parliament is to sell us out. The question of land on the continent doesn't need negotiation. The international law says all people upon receiving their independence have a right to destroy everything that doesn't suit them. And have a right to chase everybody that doesn't agree, with their vision. But that was never done. And this, we see it implemented all over the world. Whenever people get their independence, the first thing that they do, they close borders. We need to sort out the home, right? Without visitors, right? But we're never given that opportunity. Not only we're not given the opportunity, but we're not given the option to decide. For them to be open to us and say, here's a colonizer structure. Here is your tried and tested governing system, right? Choose which one you want to continue with. Right. But they just all, made us so excited to be liberated to a point that we're no longer questioning as to what they were doing in those negotiations. We're freedom drunk, if I can say that.
All of us.
We desperately wanted freedom.
We were busy dancing, Ketla, while they were selling us.
Oh, no, certainly. Hey, when we're busy toying and, celebrating this pseudo freedom, we now find out that most of them were negotiating deals with these white companies, whilst we're preparing for the vote of 1994. So this gives you, the character of the leadership that we have. We don't have leaders, We have people who have been compromised. All of them, or most of them, are colonized. Because if you are not colonized, You cannot fight for the existence of a republic on the continent.
And you know, we've had a few visionary leaders, and as you know, they do away with them very quickly. Thomas Sankara is one,
Yes.
Samora Machel is another. We've had leaders where, when they see that, wait a minute, this is not about my people. This thing that you want me to sign in these deals, they're not going to benefit my people. You are continuing to fleece. You are continuing to take the gold out. You are taking the diamonds. You're taking the oil, and we continue impoverished, or
Yes.
even worse than we were before you left. So how is this working for my people? And the leaders who rose up to speak against this, they were killed.
Yes.
And what is so sad about many of them passing is that it was one of their own that pulled the trigger. And it speaks to what you were talking about this generational curse of selling out that exists within Abantu, and which is the reason that for centuries, anytime there was a downfall for Abantu, it was not outsider, it was an insider giving outsiders
That's
access.
true. That's
Always.
true.
It is very painful when you read the history, because then the question becomes, what is wrong with us, though? Why do we always have Lembe or AMB? Why do we always have these sellouts? It's almost like they reincarnate and keep coming back to destroy. And this age we're in now is no different. As we fight for this total liberation, they are sellouts already. There are those who are obvious, who are the politicians. For me, politicians are sellout. Look at what President Zuma just did. He capitulated on all the things that he was saying prior to the election. Post-election, he's singing a new tune. It's no longer about the people want their land. It is now about appeasing white people so that they don't get jittery, so that they feel comfortable, that there will be no guns involved in this, that we were going to solve this amicably. This bothers me so much, because a lot of people had placed a lot of trust, even some of us who are apolitical. I don't like politics. I kind of, he grabbed my attention, put it that way, with the words that he was saying, because it's like, this guy is really saying all the right things. I wonder if really this is the change we've been waiting for, only to realize that, nah, it's business as usual.
No, it's like that, because we've been saying this. No politics will liberate black people.
That's
right?
true. Yeah,
We
100%.
need to unite outside politics and religion, right? That's our only solution. We need to unite outside both these structures, so that we are able, and we must never fool ourselves, as African people, and think that people are just going to give you your freedom. Never. You take what belongs to you, right?
Yes,
You take
absolutely.
it. Nobody gives you freedom, right? We have to be ready for war, for us to actually conclude this. Yeah. All these people who are telling us all lies that, no, we should be patient. The next time, we might win. We will never win against a colonial construct. These people know, everything about this system. We know nothing. They created this system. So, which is why we need to move away from and stop deceiving people and giving them hope that will be liberated by the very system that has colonized them.
Never.
It's impossible. As an example, and of course, let's look at the Organization of African Unity. It never achieved its goals. Why? Because their setup was wrong right from the start.
Right.
And the Organization of African Unity was formed by people who have already accepted to preside over theft we call republics. So that is why it has never delivered anything meaningful for us. You know, even now we're still failing. Why does it exist? You know, this other one that it died, the OAU, they then gave birth to this AU. What do?
Absolutely
The
nothing.
only thing that we do, they fight in that hall where they are meeting. Huh? They fight over who's controlling. You know, they're supposed to give each other, you know, timelines that you have one term, whatever. So the Central Africa group, divisions there, the Central Africa, there's, you know, Northern Africa, the Southern Africa, there are different interests there. So this is the craziness, and who's funding them? The colonizer.
They did that on purpose, though. It's a distraction. They did that on purpose because, you know, whenever they are those leaders who are disgruntled by trade deals and so on, they thought, you know, the way to keep these people quiet is keep them fighting. You know, we take them from different places, form a coalition, call it the African Union, and then when they get together, you know what? Let them fight, and it's so embarrassing to watch these so-called educated leaders or politicians bicker like children. They
are
bicker like
poison,
children.
not educated. Sorry.
Whatever. But they bicker like children. They come up with zero resolutions, and the things that they are fighting about literally have nothing to do with the people at home.
Everybody knows the truth.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the truth that we have to go through the same process that Taure and those West African leaders have taken. All of us on the continent. That is the reality, right? Those are the winds of change that are blowing throughout the whole continent. Everybody, you know, wishes Taure was in their country. Yes. Because of the suffering that they are still experiencing, people of the continent. And when they see the possibility of true liberation that they witness Taure doing, you know, all the time, that is truly, here's a leader who's truly working for the people. Not all these, you know, sellouts all over the continent who are there to maintain a white system, right? The reality that we have to go through that, you know, process. It's just that, you know, some of us are unfortunate to have leaders in the army that, you know, still admire the colonial system and still praise the colonial system. And the colonial system, this time it's over. Yeah. You know, it's time for change now. I don't know why people can't see that. It means their third eye is closed.
That's the difference between spiritual people and just ordinary people out there, Ketla, is that we see things from a very different perspective, which is why that's why they think we're all crazy sometimes, because and we are a little bit. Because we're able to see things they don't see. Like, you're able to see the signs of the times. You're able to, the ability to read star alignment and be able to know that, oh my gosh, this thing that's happening now, we're at the shift of an age, right? We're into the age of Ma'at. We're out of the age of Set and chaos, which was ruled predominantly by white systems and Umlungu and the Freemasons. It's over. And these things that they were using are going to gradually lose power, because there's a lot of things that are done in order to get power and then hold on to it. All that it's falling apart. There are people who are, because we know, for example, that is a low vibrational frequency. So already, if you are greedy and if you are a sellout and if your morals are the morals of a pig, you are not going to vibrate high. Therefore, there are things you're not going to be privy to. There are things you won't see. Moreover, because you're greedy, you spend so much of your time focused on how do I amass more wealth and how do I protect it for myself. You know?
No, certainly. And remember, guys, these politicians and these abusers of African people or abusers of black people, they're a minority, right? If we were to unite outside them, there's nothing that we cannot, change. Change is going to come from us, not from any politician. This is my view and belief.
Yeah.
All these people who are still trying to make or give oxygen to these republics on the continent, they are just wasting time and, delaying our liberation and freedom. Because once the army takes over, liberation comes in just 1 week, at the most 1 month. The whole country and economy is back in our hands. And this is what they are not willing to do. And this is what they have to confront that. They have to take that stance. What Taure there is doing, this is what the whole Africa is doing, wishing for. So they're just delaying us. So it's important, this initiative that we've done, especially to give black people internationally the foundation upon which we can all unite. It starts there. And speaking with one voice, demonizing these republics. I think we need to magnify that voice and give explanation as to why, these republics must be destroyed, so that everybody understand we cannot expect a better Africa as long as these republics exist on the continent, and when they're destroyed, we then bring in our royals and all the stakeholders, with the exception of people who sold us out, because they are a rotten bunch that can never be resuscitated.
No, actually, they need to be done away with.
Those are people we must never even put them in positions of power and control, because they've shown us, that it's easy for them to sell us out and abuse us to protect the white man, and have no conscience in doing that. So we are on our own as black people, which is why we need to meet outside all these Western establishments, and the spirit of the continent and the spirit of our ancestors, are with us. This is what they want, to happen on the continent. So let us align with nature and use the calendar, as that instrument that will ignite that fire within us, so that that blood, that royal blood, that spark within that plasma, it's awakened, so that all of us have one vision. One vision, which is a better Africa, where we are in total control of our land and our resources. We are the most richest, people on the continent, but we are being deprived by these sellouts who find it easy, to sell us out for material things and material gains.
Togoza Kedla, I'm looking at our time, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining us once again. Now, diaspora people, you now know what Orania is and how Orania came into existence. That was a big question, like all over the socials for a few days. There were people who couldn't understand that such a place exists. Now you understand why it exists. Also, Mkhulu, thank you for giving us the historical perspective and grounding us really in understanding that there was a solid and viable, a tried and tested governing structure or system prior to colonization, because we don't get taught that in schools. Certainly it wasn't taught that when I was in school, and you can best believe that younger people than I am are not even getting anything to do with African royalty, because that is the thing. The colonizer and its system will never give you something that can liberate you or liberate your mind, because it works against them. So On that note, I want to say thank you so much. Royals, you have been fantastic. Thank you for showing up once again. And this conversation will be uploaded onto YouTube. So, those of you who came in late, I noticed that the numbers started going up after we were in like halfway through. This is going to be shared on YouTube. You guys can go and recap later on. Mkhulu, any last words for us before we depart?
No, I would like to thank people who really, came in and then gave us an ear and listened, because the more we are conscious of what, is happening, we are able to teach. When you are enlightened, it's your responsibility to teach those that are still, in the darkness. And, and then just to thank people, the reaction that we see on our social is very positive. It's encouraging. Remember that end of guys. This is the work of government, right? Because they have resources, right? But nobody is willing to back us up because of the content that we are pushing, right?
Right.
So, despite all those challenges of not getting any support, but through the collective effort of our Black people, we are still alive. We are still surviving today, and we will survive. Even without any backing from, these sellouts, because these are people who are still perpetuating a white system, right? They are perpetuating the white calendar. They give funding, to all the events that are associated with the calendar of the colonizer. But when it comes to our events associated with the African calendar, they do nothing, and they don't want to hear anything. So we thank the spirit, of the sun and moon and all our ancestors, to make us survive. And we are going to survive this. We are not going to be defeated, by these people. And another thing, which is great news, of guys, there's a one of the kings there in the US that has confirmed that he will be joining us for the new year.
Fantastic. That's
That
brilliant.
made my day, because I was so happy. He
That's
called me,
fantastic,
Kulusoso, wanting to find out details, and just confirming that. It said to me, a seed has been planted all over the world. Our people are responding positively. We need this Black unity internationally, so that we become strong again and rule this world. The land, this whole world belongs to us because we're the first citizens. So all we need is unity. Then everything will be brought back to us. Togos and Togaz.
Thank you so much. What amazing news. And I have some good news. You're not the only. I am not going to.
And of course, just to give thanks to all the people who are supporting us, because this is how we survive as GK. We survive through the money we get through the books and the items that, we are not asking for favors, but for people to support us, please make sure that you order, from our store as well. And I truly, truly appreciate your support. I know that, we are going to create the most powerful economic bloc, in the world when we are united as, Black people internationally. And just to give, thanks to you and Jocelyn. I hope she's listening. Because without your support and Jocelyn, we wouldn't be here. Thank you so much.
No, Togoza Ketla. It's part of the calling, Ketla. We do this because we are passionate about the plight of Bagwantu the same way that you are. So it is an absolute joy and a pleasure to be doing this work. I have some news too. Got in touch with a queen from Atlanta who said she would like to host a gathering in celebration of the new year, time it with us. So they would
Yes.
do the all-night vigil with us, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
do umphato with us and everything else. So we are going to be meeting with her tomorrow. I'm going to send her a
Yes.
message that we have a meeting tomorrow, so I can give some guidance as to how this is going to work. So the movement is growing, and the movement is growing. I just wanted to share that with you and with the greater community, so that they
Yes.
understand that this thing that we're living, that thing,
Yes.
actually, we're not doing it. Yes, this thing that we are living is alive. So on that note, Royals, please do. Link is in my bio. I said it at the beginning. Do go purchase yourself a calendar and get yourself aligned. It's truly powerful. We have videos unending about the importance of the calendar, and periodically we will have Mkhulu come, especially around the cardinal points, to explain what is happening at each of these cardinal points. He did an overview where he talked about the importance of the cardinal points themselves vis-a-vis the
Yes.
calendar. So please
Oh,
get yourself a copy. Yes.
yes. Sorry, of guys, I nearly forgot this. We didn't touch on this Pan-Africanism, as
Oh,
to, because most people in the diaspora, they are still believing that the concept of Pan-Africanism, on its own, it's a perfect thing, right? But it cannot be used as a system to replace, the white man system, right? Pan-Africanism is going to be based on blackening a white man system,
Thomas.
right? So we need to be a Pan-Africanist in our minds, but demanding the real structure to be reintroduced, which is African royalty.
And Pan-Africanism, Ketla, just to add to that, Pan-Africanism, it did not come with white people. The great empire of Kemet was a perfect sign for Pan-Africanism in the correct and authentic way. The Pan-Africanism that exists now is based on these republics. It's based on the republics and their structure. So, like Mkhulu says, our Pan-Africanism is more a mental, even a spiritual Pan-Africanism, as we're seeking unity. But we mustn't for a minute think that the Pan-Africanism that is being sold to us by politicians is going to get us anywhere, because anything that is rooted in the white man's structure is not going to do anything for us. In fact, it is poison to us as Black people. So on that note, Mkhulu, I'm glad you did that, because I did promise that you would explain and I totally forgot.
Oh man, this time is too short. Too short.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Royals, for coming, and see you on the next one. Take care.
Sure,
Bye.
sure. No, we must organize the next one.
Definitely.
Okay. Sure, sure. Take a seat.